Chapter 10:28 Return to Zero. Finally, he had enough judgment in his heart. So, he put away the silver revolver in his right hand with an extremely gorgeous posture. Then he took out the gold revolver inserted on the left side of his waist with his left hand. He has two guns. The silver revolver, Sunset Yellow Sand, and the gold revolver, Fate's Sigh. The silver revolver is the romance of the Western cowboy, and the gold revolver is a ballad to pay tribute to the mourners. Kerala. He skillfully turned the magazine of the revolver, checked the ammunition, and pushed the magazine into the gun body. Then he aimed at Suzaku and raised his gold revolver. Reset to zero. When the muzzle was aimed at Suzaku, a huge death crisis instantly enveloped her. Suzaku's hair stood on end. She didn't know why this sense of crisis suddenly arose. But it was certain that Kanero was going to launch an attack that was countless times more powerful than the previous silver revolver. Ice Prison Suza. Her body's surface burst into more violent flames, rushing in all directions like an explosion. After the flames passed, the earth withered directly, and the cold breath permeated dozens of meters under the earth, plundering the remaining vitality in this land. The ice flame Suzaku has the ability to forcibly plunder power. In a sense, the ability of the Suzaku is also considered to have the qualifications for promotion to Ypsilon. Tens of millions of ice-blue flames gathered together and turned into a huge, nearly materialized blue Suzaku. It made a sharp cry, flapped its wings for hundreds of meters, and slammed into the area where Kanero was with the raging ice flames. Kanero's expression was as cold as a piece of steel, and he was indifferent to this. In his eyes, there was a circle of fate that was slowly closing. It was a strange snake connected head to tail. When the snake head bit the snake tail, it marked the end of fate. In an instant, 6 bullets were fired from the muzzle almost at the same time. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. 6 bullets cut through the space and collided with the huge ice flame Suzaku. Suzaku's head shattered instantly, and at the same time, the bullet was dyed blue. However, this moment of stagnation did not seem to change anything. They were still moving forward in an unstoppable manner, and the final destination of their fate was Suzaku's body. Crackle. It was the sound of broken ice. The air was frozen because of the ice prison Suzaku, but it could not stop the trajectory of the bullet. Because Billy the Kid's ability was called Reset to Zero. This ability was very simple, without any fancy tricks. It was simply able to ignore almost all physical defenses. And combined with his ability as a quick shooter, it was almost unsolvable. If you didn't know his ability, you would die the first moment you saw him. But even if you knew his ability, it would be difficult to block his bullets. It was simply a difference in level. Puff, puff, puff. The huge ice prison Suzaku was quickly disintegrated. The huge fire ring around Suzaku was quickly pierced. The 6 bullets fired from the golden revolver carried an unstoppable momentum and shot towards her body. In Suzaku's mind, even a revolving lantern appeared at this moment. But she broke free with her strong willpower. At this moment, she burst out the most powerful force in her life, burning all the superpowers in her body and releasing super strong flames. She did affect the bullet. She is also one of the few people who can affect the time of Kanero's bullet. But just like that, it doesn't mean that she can dodge this attack. Even if she tried her best, she only dodged 3 bullets, but there were still 3 bullets she didn't dodge. A bullet slowly pierced her shoulder. Another bullet scratched her forehead, leaving a long scar, and a bullet shot into her thigh. The battle ended so quickly. This is the battle of the quick gunmen. Suzaku was seriously injured in an instant. She almost collapsed to the ground, but she tried her best to support herself and not fall down, and immediately let the combat uniform inject her with medicine. Billy stood in the distance, looking at Suzaku with admiration. You are the first person who can survive my attack. However, I think there is no need to fight this battle anymore. Your life is your own. Why don't you surrender? You know, we always treat prisoners well. Although he said this, his hands were not slow to replenish bullets. Suzaku's heart was extremely cold. She originally thought that she could fight with Kanero with her own ability. But she didn't expect that she would be so vulnerable in front of Kanero. Is the gap in level so big? When she thought that many high-level officials in the East China Sea region called her the most promising alien to become the second Ypsilon in the Navy, she felt ashamed. But facing the olive branch thrown by Kanero, Suzaku gritted his teeth and sneered, "Don't treat me like a 3-year-old child. Even if I die, I won't be your test subject." Kanero smiled and said, "Don't underestimate your own value. As long as you surrender, I can guarantee that you'll be treated better than in the East China Sea region. It just so happens that a few guys died on our side. I can write you a letter of introduction and let you join the Hell Chain. What do you think?" Kanero's words were sincere. In his opinion, fighting is just for the purpose of some people, letting these warriors fight for life and death. He doesn't like this kind of thing. This is just a job. Just punch in at work. Why play with your life? Suzaku gasped heavily. She stared at Kanero without answering. But soon, a look of hope appeared in her eyes. "Let me surrender, you dreams." Kanero's 2 eyebrows twisted up and down helplessly. "Then I have no choice." He raised the gun in his hand to Suzaku. At this moment, a sharp sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from the distance, and 2 phantoms rushed straight towards Kanero. Kanero raised his hand and fired 2 shots. Boom! Boom! After being hit, the 2 phantoms fell to the sides far away from him and then exploded directly. It turned out to be 2 micro-missiles. Kanero knew that Suzaku's helpers had arrived. He didn't intend to delay any longer and was about to raise his hand to deal with Suzaku. At this time, a huge figure in the air suddenly descended and blocked Suzaku. It was a huge panda-shaped robot, 3 meters tall, with a sturdy body that was a little bloated, and the whole body was the hardest military alloy armor. Kanero pointed his pistol at it, bang, 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 and fired 3 shots in a row. The huge mecha puppet was directly blown away. The armor was shattered, revealing the mechanical core inside. But it had bought enough time for Suzaku and the White Tiger, who came. Chapter 1029 Dedication. At the critical moment, Bahu finally arrived. He flew over from a distance on a pterosaur-shaped mecha puppet. One of the captains of the 4 spirit fleets of the East China Sea region, Bahu. Ability codename, Puppet Master. A person with control ability. He has the most proficient control skills and can control dozens of mechanical puppets at the same time. This ability makes him one of the few men on the battlefield who can control large mechas. On the battlefield, he alone is a powerful, heavy firepower army. Bahu stood in front of Juke and took out 2 metal boxes from the storage box in his arm at the first time. As soon as the metal boxes landed, they quickly turned into 2 panda-shaped mechanical puppets, blocking them and Kanero. The puppets made of memory metal can be scaled to the maximum extent and are easy to carry. After seeing the first puppet being destroyed, Bahu realized that Billy the Boy's strength was definitely not something they could contend with. If even Juke could hardly withstand Billy the Boy's attack, then he, who was just a puppeteer, did not have this ability. "Can you still move?" Bahu asked. Kanero looked at the new opponent, who suddenly appeared. This time, he took out 2 revolvers, 1 gold and 1 silver. "I think I don't have much time to waste here with you." As soon as he finished speaking, 2 huge mecha puppets suddenly jumped out from the thick, poisonous miasma. They were 2 insect-shaped puppets, more than 3 meters tall, with 8 legs and 2 huge mechanical clamps, and they were equipped with more than a dozen large and small machine guns. Beep, beep, beep. The 2 mecha puppets launched a fierce attack on Kanero. At the same time, they threw a large number of flash bombs and smoke bombs. This gave Bahu and Juke a gap. Juchua's injuries have been stabilized after the injection of drugs. But if she continues to fight, it is obviously more reluctant. She has realized the gap between herself and Kanero. "I can still leave. This guy is too strong. We are no match for him. Not to mention us. Even if Qinglong comes, he may not be able to defeat him. With his ability, the guy from Jiangnan district must be the counterbalance. Let's go." Juke had no lingering feelings for the battle. Bahu glanced at her and then looked at the battlefield not far away. The 2 mechanical puppets had been shot into pieces by Kanero. If we all want to leave, we can't. His gun is too fast. I'll stay and hold him back. You leave quickly. Go find Xinglong or Chaos. Baihu said without hesitation. Baihu, you. Zhu Ke was stunned. She looked at Baihu in disbelief. This man, who had almost no other hobbies besides dealing with machines, actually said such words at this time. Facing Canero alone? Isn't that courting death? You can't beat him,
Zhu Ke said.
but you can't beat him here either.
Baihu also said.
Suzaku suddenly felt a strong sense of regret. If she hadn't insisted on acting separately, she might not have ended up in this situation. Baihu knew what she was thinking, but he still comforted her. Don't think too much. His ability is too powerful. Even if we face him head-on, it will be difficult for us to win. The data of the intelligence system will not lie. Now, the best option is for you to escape. I can stay and stop him for a while. When Baihu said this, his eyes became brighter and brighter, and his whole momentum became high.
Zhu Ke suddenly realized something.
You injected compound number 5. Baihu had to do this. If he didn't do it, he might be killed by Canero in seconds. Zhu Ke gritted his teeth, and a trace of blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. She also planned to inject compound number 5 and fight Canero to the death. However, Baihu stopped her again. Although he didn't talk much, he was very thoughtful, especially for Zhu Ke. He knew him very well. Don't do meaningless things. You are seriously injured, and you will die if you take more medicine. Live well. You have the potential of Ypsilon. You should not let your life wither here. Live well. Just for us. The we, he said, were all the comrades who died on the battlefield. Suzaku fell silent after hearing this. She awakened relatively late, so her current combat power is at the bottom among the 4 spirits. However, she has the potential to grow, and was even rated as an alien with talent no less than Xuanwu. Because of this, Baihu was ordered to protect her in this operation. Baihu is loyal to his duties, and he believes that Suzaku's survival is more important than his. Suzaku no longer hesitates. You okay? Baihu, I'll go first. You must live too. Baihu nodded silently. The heavy armor on his body suddenly began to disintegrate, and then flew to Suzaku's body. In a brief moment, it grew a pair of wings and had 2 more powerful propulsion devices. Let's go! Suzaku turned around and quickly left the battlefield with the help of the aircraft. At this time, Canero had cleared the obstacles in front of him. He saw Suzaku running away and frowned slightly. But Baihu had already controlled 7 or 8 huge mechanical puppets and launched the most fierce attack on him. Baihu knew that Canero's combat power was very strong, but his pursuit ability was not strong. He just needed to delay Suzaku enough time. Not more, just 1 minute, Suzaku would be safe. Baihu looked at Canero in front of him, and he had already made up his mind to die. He was not afraid of death. Every warrior must be prepared to die the moment he stepped into the battlefield. What matters is whether the death is valuable. My ability index is 9,600 points, but after using compound number 5, I can burst out a combat power of 9,800 points in a short period of time. He felt the power surging in his body and clenched his fists. You can fight. Even if I die, I have to help Suzaku delay enough time. Maybe I can use my life to cause serious injuries to Billy. In that case, my sacrifice will be worth it. Suzaku ran away. Canero was not in a hurry. He was not an alien who was good at hunting. It was just right to slowly get rid of Baihu here and then think about the future. Do you think that after injecting the drug, you can fight me? Canero smiled cruelly. Let me tell you a fact today. My ability index is rated at 9,999 points because the upper limit of the delta level is only this high, and yours is more than 9,000 points because your upper limit is only that high. Don't think that you are an alien of the same level as me. Chapter 1030 Puppet Master. Facing Canelo's ridicule, Baihu said nothing, but expressed his attitude with his actions. The patterns on the arm guards and thigh armors unfolded one by one, and many metal boxes popped out from them. These seemingly heavy armors are actually his puppet warehouses. After more than 20 metal boxes landed, they expanded like balloons. In an instant, a huge and terrifying mecha army appeared around his body. Invisible mental threads extended from his brain. It was with these threads that he could control all the mechanical puppets like his body. For huge armored pandas blocked him with a boom and formed a solid wall. 7 or 8 combat armored puppets held up machine guns and began to bombard Canelo fiercely. Canelo's body rolled and dodged quickly on the ground. The machine gun bullets fired very fast, but for him, this speed was less than 1/10 of his, so he did not dodge in a mess.
Clatter.
Bullet shells fell to the ground, and micromissiles exploded near Canero, but the lethality of this weapon could not even penetrate Canero's combat uniform. When there was a gap in the attack of the mechanical puppets, he stood up, raised his hand, and fired a few shots. Each bullet destroyed a mechanical puppet accurately. The golden revolver, Sigh of Fate, shot out 4 rose gold streams of light, which shot at the 4 meat shield puppets in front of Bahu. The panda armor that looked extremely heavy could not stop the light stream of light and was instantly disintegrated. In less than 5 seconds of fighting, most of Bahu's puppets were destroyed. This made his heart sink gradually. Sure enough, my capacity has stopped here? What a pity! He sighed helplessly. As a mechanic, being able to reach such a level is already his limit. He was not a genius to begin with. He relied on the power of the mechanical puppets to play a huge role in the war, and then he became one of the 4 spirits. However, when facing a true genius, a top master, his weaknesses would be exposed. However, even a small screw, if placed in the right place, can become very useful. Don't underestimate me, Billy the Kid. The broken mechanical armor emitted a messy green smoke in the valley. Carnero held 2 revolvers, lowered his head, and walked towards Bahu step by step. In his opinion, this was just a battle without suspense. Bahu took a deep breath and then shouted in a low voice, "Explode!" A burst of rapid red light suddenly appeared among the mechanical puppets destroyed by Carnero. Carnero's eyes condensed, and before he knew it, he had been surrounded by those puppets. He didn't expect that those puppets that had been destroyed were actually equipped with high-energy self-destruct devices. Boom! More than a dozen mechanical puppets exploded at the same time, and Carnero was in the core area of the explosion. The amazing energy explosion was enough to easily destroy several streets. Bahu stared at the area of the explosion in front of him. According to intelligence, Canelo's attack power is S level, but it does not show that he has extremely strong defense. Generally speaking, these 2 things are unlikely to exist in the same person. If they exist, it is just an illusion caused by the person's high superpower index. If I can't kill you, I will at least cause you some injuries. At the moment of the explosion, Canelo quickly rotated the revolver in his hand. Neon dance. He opened his arms, and 2 powerful superpowers rushed into the gold and silver revolver frantically. Then a blazing beam of light burst out from the muzzle. Every time he pulled the trigger, what he shot out was no longer a bullet, but an energy beam like a flashlight on the dance floor. Canelo danced in the core area of the explosion. At this time, he was like being on the dance floor. The gold and silver revolver in his hand was a light ball on the stage, shooting out colorful rays of light. These energy beams penetrated the shockwave of the explosion and weakened the power of the explosion. This move directly stunned Bahu. He could never have imagined that someone could use a single attack to weaken the explosion attack covering the entire field. Only because his gun skills were fast enough, he achieved such an incredible effect. A moment later, Canero walked out of the core area of the explosion. His body was covered with snow and mud on the ground, but he still looked so calm. "Surrender, big guy," Canero said coldly to Bahu. Bahu's puppets had been destroyed. Without the puppets, his combat power was not even comparable to that of an alpha-level alien. There was no point in continuing to struggle. Bahu just grinned. Impossible. He opened his right hand, and his huge palm pressed hard on his chest armor. "This is my last puppet, Bahu. Self-destruct." In the fog, in a valley deep in the valley, an extremely huge energy erupted. The The roar of the explosion resounded for dozens of miles, causing all the poisonous miasma around to roll back. At this time, Juke, who had already fled dozens of miles away with his injured body, heard the explosion, and his expression was dull for a moment.
She knew what the explosion meant.
A trace of sadness filled her heart. Juchue's heart was as painful as a needle. She thought her heart was hard enough, but for some reason, her eyes were still a little blurry. Perhaps it was not until this moment that she vaguely realized that the big fool had been so good to her, or perhaps he had feelings for her. However, until the end, he did not say those words. Soldiers, dying on the battlefield is their destiny. Especially after the end of the world, almost no one can be an exception. Either die of hunger and cold in the ice and snow, or contribute to the great forces and die on the battlefield. As long as this chaotic world does not restore its original order, the war will never end completely. Juke clenched his fists tightly. She knew she had to leave as soon as possible. She had completely lost the qualification to compete for the source of God this time. I have to stay alive. Only if I stay alive can I hope to avenge Bahu, she gasped. The wounds on her body were temporarily sealed by hemostatic coagulants, but in order to remove the bullet left in her body by Canero, she had to return to Xuanwu. The aircraft had stopped working. It could fly a certain distance in this harsh environment. It had already reached its limit. Juke buried the aircraft and then dragged the remains of the aircraft, not daring to stop for a moment, and staggered towards the coast where Xuanwu was. Chapter 1030, One Hunting the Big Totoro. After leaving the fog valley for a distance, Juke finally contacted the command center. She immediately reported the battle situation and the death of Bahu. The command center was silent for a long time. Everyone was very heavy about Bahu's death. The Four-Spirit Fleet was the highest level of combat power in the East China Sea region. Bahu's death was undoubtedly a huge loss. However, they also knew that death was inevitable. Now, both sides have reasons not to fail in this battle. Only by getting the source of God can all their losses be compensated. Otherwise, it would be an unimaginable tragic defeat. First of all, they have to face the huge loss of their own alien team. In fact, they have to watch the other side gain an Epsilon strongman. The combined loss is unimaginable. Situ Xian stood behind Li Tianyang. At this time, his best practice was not to say a word, and he had to try to show a sad expression on his face. Otherwise, even if he showed a little relaxation, he would feel deliberately ridiculed. There was no way. Originally, everyone in the East China Sea region thought that the Jiangnan region was only qualified to assist the East China Sea region in this operation. After all, their strength was indeed far inferior to that of the East China Sea region. But who would have thought that the lone wolf who was looked down upon by everyone at the beginning, Chaos, who had no military honor and collective spirit, actually slapped everyone in the face. His record alone exceeded that of the entire East China Sea region's alien team. On the other hand, the East China Sea region has not had a very impressive record so far. Instead, 3 captains were lost in succession, including the White Tiger with an ability index of 9,600 points. Li Tianyang opened his cracked lips with difficulty. In recent days, his urine has turned dark yellow, and he is obviously a little angry. He said in a hoarse voice, "On the battlefield, the situation changes rapidly, and casualties are inevitable. But at present, it seems that the situation is still under control." He said. He turned his head and looked at Situ Xian. "Minister Situ, can you contact Handan?" Situ Xian touched his nose and thought, "I've been so quiet, but you still haven't forgotten me." Handan has taken the initiative to disconnect from the command center. He has always been very opinionated, and I can't command him. Li Tianyang held his left arm tightly with his right hand behind his back. His breathing became heavy, and he said word by word, "But now, the aliens on the periphery are dead or retreating. He should go to Fog Valley."
What
Li Tianyang hopes most now is that Jang E will show up quickly and fight to the death with that damn Billy Boy. As long as Jang E can hold Billy Boy back, even if he dies in battle, at least Billy Boy can be severely injured. In this way, their East China Sea region's last and most important seed, Qinglong, on Qingdao will have a huge chance to obtain the source of God. Situ Xian was vague. Well, the problem you mentioned is not about what I should do. It is not about what Jang E must do, so let's discuss it slowly and think of a specific solution. Situ Xian was not fooled by Li Tianyang. Now he loved Jang E to death in his heart. In his opinion, whether or not to get the source of God was not even the most important thing. The most important thing was that Jang E had to survive. If Jang E survived, Jiangnan district would get a strong Ypsilon in less than a year.
He had thought about it.
This time when he went back, even if he risked being scolded by Zhu Zheng, he would propose to him that Jiangnan district use its resources to train Jang E with all its strength. This battle made him realize more clearly the importance of a top alien in a large-scale battle after the end of the world. Zhu Ke was discouraged and decided to withdraw from the Qingdao battlefield and no longer participate in the fight for the source of God. She stumbled all the way, left the Fog Valley, and walked towards the direction of Xuanwu. Caradorang City. This is a place far away from the Fog Valley, and it is already in a truce period, because the truly top masters are already near the Fog Valley. Zhang E, Tianlong Wang, Qinglong, and Yasin Carnero. In a spiral valley frozen into a moon-white ice sculpture, more than a dozen elegant and beautiful figures stood on the stepped ice layer, and they looked around cautiously. This is the Rose team of the Jiangnan district. A cute female team member with long hair squatted on the ground, and in front of her stood a cute moon-white elf. Judging from the height, it can just jump up and kick her knee. But it didn't jump up and kick her knee, but looked curious, blinking its big eyes and staring at the girl in front of it. The girl smiled, her cherry lips slightly opened, and she was communicating with the elf with a frequency sound wave that humans can't hear. After a while, she turned her head and said to Linghu Feishua, the captain of the Rose team with long ice blue hair and a heroic appearance, next to her. "Captain, it said that the big guy is nearby." Linghu Feishua's beautiful eyebrows stood up in excitement. "Oh, really? Did you finally find it?" Some people came to the island for the source of God. Some people came for something else. However, what is rare is that the goal is clear, and they know what they can do. From the first moment of landing on the island, Linghu Feishua realized very clearly that the source of God, this thing has nothing to do with her. She knows very well what level the top masters of the two major forces are at. With the current strength of their team, they are not qualified to compete with those strong men. But if you lose something in one place, you can gain something in another. As long as you are patient and discover, there will always be unexpected gains. For example, the Source Self. There is a female team member named Gu Yufei in the Rose team. Her ability is not good at fighting, but she can play a very critical role at certain times.
Arya
can communicate with all spirits. She can naturally communicate with all kinds of creatures, including this cute little thing. So since landing on the island, others hunted aliens, while those who searched for the source of God searched for the source of God. Only the Rose team has been tirelessly searching for the source spirit. Although this kind of thing cannot make people break through, it can provide better effects than the source of aliens and can enhance the power of aliens. Relying on Gu Yufei's ability, they've searched for more than a dozen source spirits on the island. Linghu Feishua's ability has also been increased to 9,400 points. However, the further it goes, the slower the improvement. So Linghu Feishua began to focus on a special existence in the intelligence, the one called the giant source spirit, which looks like a big Totoro. She believes that it must be a more advanced source spirit, perhaps with functions similar to the source of God. If she can get it, it will definitely greatly enhance her strength. Chapter 1032 Berserker. Linghu Feishua heard about the big chinchilla and walked over immediately. "Where is it?" Gu Yufei tilted her head and continued to communicate with a small moon-white source spirit. After the source spirit babbled for a while, Gu Yufei said, "It said that the big guy is not always with them. Most of the time, it will appear anywhere. It's just that it likes source spirits very much and often appears beside them to absorb their energy. When it is satisfied, it will leave. Ling Hu Feishue raised his eyebrows slightly and said in surprise, "Will the big guy absorb the energy of the small guy? Could it be that they are not the same species?" As for the companion creatures of the source of God, few people really understand it, because that thing has just appeared after the end of the world. At present, the only known region that has obtained the source of God is Xinjiang. Nowadays, there are many kinds of source spirits that have been encountered. It must be a special existence. Anyway, catch it first. Then study what it is. Ling Hu Feishue waved to Gu Yufei. Gu Yufei looked helpless, but she still reached out and grabbed the source elf. Although the little guy was an elf transformed from high-purity energy, he had no ability to resist and was finally stuffed into a metal round can by Gu Yufei. Ling Hu Feishue looked at the huge spiral pit in front of her and said, "Catch all the source elves here. Then use them as bait to attract the big guys. It's been too long, and this island will become more and more dangerous. We'll stop after this deal." Ling Hu Feishue seemed to feel that the atmosphere on the island was not right. She knew that once the fight for the source of the gods really began, all the previous agreements between the two sides might be torn up. Even the aliens at the level of Ipsilon would personally take part. At that time, the entire island would become a huge Shura field. If these people stayed, they would even think that being cannon fodder was too small.
Yes,
The female team members said in a clear voice, and each took out their own tools. Gu Yufei put her hands on her chest, opened her cherry lips slightly, and uttered a song that was inaudible to human ears. Soon, elves crawled out of the white spiral one after another. The team members immediately pounced on them and locked them all in metal cans. Then another group of team members took out various tools and set traps in the white spiral, waiting for the giant source elf to appear. In order to lure the big dragon cat over, the Rose team took a more radical approach. After determining that there were basically no aliens in the area far away from the Fog Valley, they used a high-powered signal transmitter to simulate the energy signal of the source elf and transmitted it to the surrounding area. Then all the team members ambushed around the white spiral, waiting for the prey to take the bait. Less than half a day passed. The detection equipment of the investigation team members responded. The prey has taken the bait. Ling Hu Feishue's eyes were also excited, and his right hand immediately pressed on the long sword at his waist. In the distance, the poisonous miasma was surging, and a huge thing quickly came from a distance. Just when they thought that it was the big dragon cat attracted by the source elf signal, suddenly a huge and hideous monster jumped dozens of meters high from the poisonous miasma and then slammed into the deep pit where the white spiral was. Everyone looked up at the huge figure. However, it was not the giant source spirit mentioned in the intelligence. It was a huge humanoid monster over 3 meters tall, covered in black gold armor. This is... Everyone in the Rose team was stunned. They didn't expect such a thing to suddenly appear. But in a flash, the huge humanoid monster had fallen into the depths of the white spiral like a cannonball. Boom! The entire white spiral was directly shattered, and the earth and rocks splashed up like a backward waterfall. The weirdo stood in the ruins, opened his huge palm, but there was only a signal transmitter. Human traps. The weirdo made an angry voice. Obviously, he was also attracted by the amplified signal of the source spirit. But he didn't expect that he would be fooled by others. At this time, Ling Hu Feishue had communicated the intelligence here with the command center. After receiving the news, the command center immediately began to analyze the images on the scene. The conclusion drawn by the intelligence personnel made Li Tianyang, Sito Xian, and others fall into silence. Guanghan, you are facing a member of Hell's Chain, Berserker Basaka. They were silent because they knew the strength of the Rose team. If they met a member of Hell's Chain, the probability of annihilation would be very high. Retreat. Retreat immediately. Guanghan, he is not an opponent you can handle. Li Tianyang warned immediately. Berserker is a special member of Hell's Chain. In human experiments, he has been perfectly upgraded and is a reinforcement-type alien with excellent attributes. His enhanced body can fight against the main gun of a battleship. The only shortcoming is that he... Chapter 1033 Strong Flesh. Ling Hu Feishue reacted immediately. They had to attack immediately while Basaka was still entangled by the energy net. Otherwise, when this monster with only the desire to kill breaks free, the chances of winning for all the people here combined may not be even 30%. Everyone listen up, attack. Ling Hu Feishue drew out his long sword and raised it diagonally upward. Hearing the captain's voice, the team members came back to their senses. In an instant, all kinds of weapons began to greet Basaka in the depths of the white spiral. Why am I here, encountering a group of bugs like you? Damn, it's a complete waste of my time. Basaka felt pain and roared more fiercely. He exerted force violently and directly tore the huge energy net to pieces. At this time, Ling Hu Feishue had completed the coding of all the members. The opponent is a reinforcement-type alien, good at close combat, so be careful to keep a distance. She herself jumped high with her sword and flew towards Basaka. A Midsummer Night's Dream. She opened her cherry lips and spit out colorful bubbles from her mouth, which instantly covered the entire white spiral. Each colorful bubble was a high-purity bomb transformed by supernatural power. Explode! The bombs of the seven-color rainbow exploded like fireworks, completely submerging Basaka. Soon, Basaka's combat uniform became riddled with holes. However, it revealed his dark, strong, and even somewhat exaggerated muscles. His muscles seemed to be made of black gold, glowing in the weak sunlight. Ling Hu Feishue had already come to the sky above him with the cover of the colorful bubbles. A pure white full moon slowly emerged behind her, making her look like a fairy under the moon, but more like a beautiful and heroic female general. The long sword in Ling Hu Feishue's hand elegantly drew an arc in the air. Moon wheel slash. From the full moon, a light like ice and snow burst out. Then, one after another, bright white moonlight fell from the sky like a waning moon, like a sharp blade, like a battle axe, slashing at Basaka in the white spiral. At this time, Basaka was completely enraged. He took out a blood-stained silver-armored battle axe and roared at the sky. Moon rings fell in front of him one after another, and he swung the battle axe directly, without any fancy moves, and smashed them one by one. The explosion of energy filled the entire white spiral. The attacks of the entire Rose squad converged on him alone. Basaka could not withstand all the attacks, and there would always be some that fell on him. Not long after, his body even had some shallow scars. But the blood that flowed out made him even more excited. Hey, woman! Those insignificant wounds disappeared in an instant and regenerated directly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Berserker, Garrett Brent, ability code name, Viking War Spirit. The top-level enhanced mutant, ability index 9,500 points. He possessed almost all the perfect abilities of a reinforcement-type alien. For example, super speed regeneration. Basaka held a battle axe and looked at the woman floating in the colorful bubble in the air. He let out a creepy laugh, bent his legs, and his strong thigh muscles were like two thick steel bars twisted together.
Boom.
He stomped his legs hard on the ground and rushed into the sky like a cannonball, rushing towards Ling Hu Feishue. The speed was simply jaw-dropping. Ling Hu Feishue was not vague at all, and spit out colorful bubbles all over the sky, blocking Basaka's vision. She herself quickly flew away. She was not so stupid as to fight a reinforcement-type alien in close combat. Basaka missed a blow and was immediately besieged by all the members of the Rose team. Damn bug. He had more and more wounds on his body. Although they were not fatal, he looked very embarrassed. But as he got more and more wounds, his skin color slowly changed from black to red. A more manic aura emerged from his body, and his eyes began to be obscured by the cold, killing intent. He looked up at Ling Hu Feishue in the air, stretched his right arm like a discus thrower, and then threw the battle axe in his hand. Ling Hu Feishue was ready to dodge. But when the axe rushed over, she realized that her reaction ability was not enough to dodge this attack. The difference in speed and strength was too great, and her eyes could not even capture the trajectory of the battle axe attack. In a hurry, she could only protect herself with 7 layers of coating to block it. Puff. 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 The tough supernatural coating was punctured one after another like a balloon. Linghu Feishue blocked in front of her with a long sword. The moment the 7 layers of coating were broken, she finally blocked Basaka's throwing axe. However, the powerful force on her arm made her arm numb, and her tiger's mouth, the pain was like tearing apart. You don't need to look to know that her sword-holding hand was already bleeding. This is the terrifying thing about the enhancement system in humans. In close combat, almost no inhumans of any system can compete with them. Linghu Feishue was knocked hundreds of meters away before he stopped. Chapter 1030, 4 Attribute Restraint. Guan Yue thought that as a reinforcement-type mutant with 8,000 points of supernatural power index, she could at least hold Basaka back for dozens of seconds, if not beat him. But she didn't expect that he would completely destroy her with just one axe. If it wasn't for the critical moment when Linghu Feishue attacked from behind Basaka and distracted Basaka's attention, the next axe would have split her in half from head to toe. Linghu Feishue directly added a layer of coating to Guan Yue and let her fly into the air. But in this way, she herself fell into a bitter battle. It's easy to get close to Basaka, but it's too difficult to keep a distance. Basaka's attack is not fancy, it's just the purest brute force. The more injured he is, the more excited he is, and the stronger the power of his attack, as if he never knows fatigue. Linghu Feishue fought with him for only 3 moves and was smashed and flew away, with multiple fractures in his arm. The members of the Rose team were anxious and hurried to support them. They only dared to attack from a distance. Try to use smoke bombs to interfere with Basaka's vision. Although this can't hurt Basaka, it is enough to anger him. Damn you bugs, I wanted to kill you slowly later. Now go and die. He turned around and threw an axe against the current. The 2 beautiful female team members didn't have time to say a word before their heads were chopped off. You, go. Linghu Feishue shouted with all her strength. She has realized the gap in strength between them. Sure enough, even if she barely used the source spirit to improve the strength of her own ability. But after all, can't the huge gap in talent be made up by simple numerical values? Linghu Feishue felt bitter in her heart. If she hadn't been too greedy and wanted to get that giant source spirit, she wouldn't have attracted this terrifying guy. By now, the entire Rose team might have been buried in the hands of the other party. The end of the world is a ruthless world. If you don't have enough strength, you don't even have the qualifications to breathe. She has planned to inject herself with compound number 5 and fight Basaka to the death. Even if she couldn't survive, she had to try to leave a way out for her teammates. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came to her ears. Why don't you leave? What are you doing here? Basaka raised the battle axe in his hand and wanted to slaughter all the other team members with a ferocious face. Suddenly, from the depths of the distant poisonous miasma, a huge ice blue light spread. In an instant, he was frozen in place. Basaka's body suddenly stagnated, and he always felt that the power in his body was like a big hole smashed in, and then flowed out. His superpowers suddenly burst out, dispelling this uncomfortable feeling. From the depths of the poisonous miasma, a woman in dark red combat uniform walked out. Her body was burning with an ice blue flame, and streams of flames were emitted from her feet, restraining Basaka's movements. When Linghu Feishue saw her, she was excited. She recognized the woman, one of the 4 spirits in the East China Sea region, Suzaku. Linghu Feishue was a little confused. Why did the powerful 4 spirits appear in an area far away from the Fog Valley at this time? Shouldn't beings of this level go to compete for the source of God? But putting aside these thoughts, her appearance here is the best news. When Basaka saw Suzaku, the murderous aura in his eyes became stronger. He knew that he had encountered a stronger opponent. However, the Berserker was fearless. Suzaku, it doesn't matter how many people come, I will kill you all. He roared terribly. Suzaku had already received information from the command center and knew who the person in front of him was. A cold look appeared at the corner of her mouth. The chain of hell. After the trip to Qingdao, the hatred between them increased a lot. She didn't say a word, but just stretched out her right hand and clenched it hard. The surging ice flames burst out from her body like a tsunami, sweeping towards Berserker. Berserker roared. The power of the Viking fighting spirit made his blood boil, stepped on the ground with both feet, and jumped towards Suzaku. Boom! The waves of ice flames submerged Berserker in the air. He waved the battle axe in his hand, trying to split the waves, but no matter how fast he was, he could not stop the pervasive ice flames. Soon his skin was covered with blue ice flames. Those ice flames, as the antimatter of fire, will devour the energy of all matter when burning, including the human body. In a sense, Suzaku, like Jang E, is the father of melee aliens. No, he is even more restrained in melee than Jang E, because Jang E prefers passive defense, while Suzaku's ice flames can take the initiative to launch a fierce offensive. Just a touch, the power in Berserker's body began to dissipate rapidly. He roared unwillingly, burning his Viking fighting spirit. He raised his battle axe and chopped at Suzaku after landing. Suzaku waved a flaming whip in his left hand, forming an airtight defense around him. Using softness to overcome hardness, Berserker's battle axe was deprived of its power by the long whip and cut deeply into the earth. The blood color in his pupils quickly became clear. No! He could feel that his burning blood began to cool down. The power in his body was constantly devoured by the cold flames that surrounded him like maggots. A berserker who respects strength, if he loses his strength, there will be nothing left. He waved his battle axe unwillingly, but he couldn't dispel the ice-blue flame on his body at all. After absorbing his power, this flame will become more powerful. Ice-prisoned Suzaku, once entangled by this power, there is almost no solution. So from the beginning, when he charged recklessly, the battle ended without suspense. Juke looked at Berserker struggling in the ice flames and thought of the white tiger who died for her. The murderous intent in her eyes became heavier. Her right hand gushed out more violent flames, forming a huge firestorm hundreds of meters high above the land, trapping Berserker in it, and began to ruthlessly plunder his vitality. Such a scene made Linghu Feishue and the members of the Rose team tremble with fear. Is this the power of a person who truly possesses talent? Linghu Feishue felt this bitter feeling again. The last time she had such a strong feeling was when she met Jang E. Chapter 1035. The Cat Playing the Flute. The Berserker was completely enveloped by Suzaku's icy flames. The extremely cold flames that could devour all energy quickly drained every bit of his energy. The Rose Squad was silent when they saw this scene. They couldn't imagine that there was such a way of fighting. A mutant with an ability index of 9,500 points was killed so easily. Berserker's voice gradually disappeared, and he finally fell to the ground, turning into a skinny body. Suzaku didn't kill him. Even though she had a huge hatred for the hell chains in her heart at this time, she didn't forget her duty as a soldier. Capturing a member of the hell chains alive is more valuable than killing him. Suzaku walked over and tied him up tightly with the long whip in his hand, and then injected compound number 3. Finally, he handcuffed his arms with shackles, all in one go. Linghu Feishue walked over and thanked her sincerely. "Thank you, Captain Suzaku." Suzaku raised his head and glanced at her, forcing a smile. "It's not suitable for you to stay here any longer. It will become more and more dangerous in the future. It's better to leave with me." Linghu Feishue nodded. "I think so too." The entire Rose team was almost wiped out by Berserker alone, just now. She is not stupid, and she will not be stupid enough to stay here to look for the Source Elves. So the Linghu team called all members and asked them to leave immediately and leave this damn area. But before leaving, she thought of something in her mind. In fact, they have already mastered some information about the big dragon cat. If they leave like this, it would be too pity. So after thinking about it, she made a decision. Send all the information about the big dragon cat to Jang E. At least everyone is from the Jiangnan district, and Jang E has enough strength to continue to stay in this battlefield. If he can get that guy because of this, he will owe her a favor anyway. At this time, Jang E was quietly waiting for the appearance of the source of God in the dark. In this process, how others fight has nothing to do with him. He will only watch the show silently. At most, he could pick some fruit at a critical moment and save some lives. However, he had no idea what happened in the Fog Valley. On this day, for the first time in a long time, his communication device received a message. Jang E was a little curious. He had blocked the communication channel of the command center. In other words, the people who could contact him now must be from the Jiangnan district.
Who would contact him at this time?
As a result, when he opened the message, he found that it was the information about the giant source elf passed by his old friend Linghu Feishua. After many days of investigation, they have basically figured out the movement patterns and trajectories of the big dragon cat. It's just that because they think they are not strong enough and don't want to continue to stay on the island to take risks, they handed all the information to Jang E. Giant source elf? It doesn't look like it. Jang E touched his chin, and he was very curious about that thing in his heart. Because according to the information currently obtained, it shows a powerful combat ability that the source elf does not have, and can even rival high-level aliens. Jang E even suspected that it was evolved from a mutated creature on the island. However, it does have some mysterious connection with the source of God. Those source elves are very close to it. Now that we have the information, why don't we go find it? How about that? Jang E said to Hua and Lei next to him. As long as the range is locked, it is not difficult for him to search for an obvious prey. Anyway, he will not get involved in other people's fights now, so it is just right to use that thing to kill time. Maybe there will be unexpected gains. Hua shook the hair on his back and stretched out his claws to scratch the blanket under his feet. Meow, are you going out hunting again? Great. When it was happy, the strength of its claws increased unconsciously, and it pulled out several clumps of the hair of the thing under its feet. Lei under Hua grimaced in pain, looking aggrieved. Since joining Jang E's gang, it has been a search dog for Jang E and a mount for Hua. Hua punched it twice when it was fine, and it didn't dare to talk back. Lei's inner OS. Haha, live. Who can live longer than you two? That thing has such sharp claws. You scratch my back all day long. You are using me as a scratching board, right? What an impudent fellow. How aggrieved this dog must be. Yes, I can't beat you. I am inferior to you, but I have also contributed a lot since we got to the island. What a terrible fellow. You are really terrible. Even though he felt a lot of grievances in his heart, Lei could only bury his dog's nose in the snow and sulk alone. Jang E and Jingwei were watching from the side and laughing secretly. If there is really danger, Hua will protect Lei without hesitation. Jang E confirmed the location provided by Linghu Feishua, which is very good, far away from the central area of the Fog Valley. In other words, there will be no powerful aliens nearby. Well, this idea coincides with Linghu Feishua. The difference is that for Jang E, there are not many people on the entire island who are qualified to be called strong by him. No one can pose a threat to his life. So, he immediately decided to take a cat, a dog, and Jingwei to see what the mysterious big dragon cat is. If it is really a large source of God, he can choose to absorb it himself, or keep it as appropriate and take it back for his family. The action of space aliens is strong. They said they were going here, and after a little preparation, they arrived nearby in a short while. Lei lay on the ground, his big nose arched, and began to smell the breath of the source of God. With Lei's help, it didn't take long for Jang E to confirm the location of the big dragon cat. It was an abandoned valley. The only benefit of the spread of poisonous miasma is that it preserves the basic appearance of many trees. The whole valley has turned into a dark green color, filled with death and poisonous miasma. Jang E unfolded the two-world knot, isolating all the breath of himself and others. He walked slowly forward and vaguely heard a melodious music in the air. It is said that the big guy can play the flute? How magical! Jang E became more and more curious. He walked forward step by step, carefully not to be discovered. After passing through layers of fog, he finally saw the body of the big Totoro. As expected, as the intelligence said, it was extremely cute and its body was very similar to the big Totoro in the animation. But its head was more like a reindeer, with lush horns. It sat on a dead tree in a cute way, closed its eyes, and immersed in the world of music. And because Jang E had the cover of the two-world knot, it did not discover Jang E's existence. Chapter 1036. The Lost Souls Depart. The scene in front of him was so peaceful that people couldn't bear to disturb him. The cute and adorable appearance of the big chinchilla made Jingwei, who always liked to keep a cold face, relax a little. Women have never been able to resist such large and cute creatures. But Jang E didn't have time to appreciate this elegant song. He raised his hand and directly laid 10-dimensional gates around the big chinchilla. Then he appeared in front of it openly. After seeing humans, the big chinchilla immediately became alert, and the expression on his face gradually changed from cute to fierce. Jang E didn't say much nonsense, and directly took out the Holy Judgment and covered it with a move, Heavenly Net. Unexpectedly, the big chinchilla looked stupid, but in fact it moved very fast. In the void, when more than a dozen slashes fell, its speed was so fast that it became a series of afterimages. Jang E couldn't help but be a little surprised. This guy has a unique sensitivity to space, which made Jang E's attack not have much effect. The speed is even faster than many high-level aliens. Jang E continued to attack without haste. The dimensional door had enveloped the space around it, forming a natural cage. No matter how fast it hid, Jang E could constantly change the direction of the door to chase and intercept it. Then it was hunting. Jang E held the white owl in his left hand and the holy judge in his right hand. While shooting with a pistol, he used the void slash to interfere with its actions. Hiss! The angry big dragon cat opened its mouth and let out a sharp breath. A raging frost storm broke out from its body. However, this powerful force was completely absorbed by the dimensional door in front of Jang E. Jang E was very patient. He was very curious about this thing and wanted to study it slowly instead of rushing to kill it. Anyway, the guy trapped by his dimensional door could not escape, and it was only a matter of time before he was captured alive. The big dragon cat had a very fierce expression. It kept jumping and dodging like a flexible meatball. However, it had to dodge 10 invisible dimensional gates on the one hand and deal with Jang E's continuous attacks on the other hand, and it became quite embarrassed for a while. Swish! Swish! Caught off guard, 2 holy silver bullets scratched its fur, and blue blood actually flowed out. What is this thing? Jang E's eyes slightly enlarged. Living creature? The source spirit is just an energy body, and it is impossible to have blood. After being captured, it will also become pure source power for aliens to absorb. But this big dragon cat is obviously not a source spirit. Sure enough, there is something fishy. What on earth is it? Jang E's curiosity about the big dragon cat became more and more determined to capture this guy alive. Because of the existence of the source of God, the poisonous miasma that destroyed half of the country did not kill it. Instead, it gained the power to get close to the companion of the source of God. This guy must have some special abilities. The big dragon cat jumped flexibly in the air to avoid the bullets shot by Jang E. And just as it was about to land, a huge dimensional door opened under its feet. The big chinchilla could feel the wind direction change under its feet, and it knew there must be some danger there. At the critical moment, it aimed at the ground and erupted a strong ice and snowstorm, rebounding itself into the sky. But at this time, Jang E no longer planned to play with it. 6-dimensional doors appeared at the same time, forming a huge hexahedron around it. Void coffin. The big chinchilla had completely entered Jang E's domain at this time. No matter how much it resisted, it inevitably fell into Jang E's alien space. Big chinchilla, captured. Jang E looked at the big guy in the alien space, and he didn't really want to kill it in his heart. This thing is very interesting, and the key is that it is also very cute. At this time, Jang E did not have a strong demand for this level of origin. Therefore, it is not necessary to kill it. This kind of rare beast is extremely rare. So he thought about it for a while, injected it with compound number 3 that can suppress superpowers, and then threw it to Lele to carry. Although the giant chinchilla is big, it is only the size of a backpack for Lele. Master, why don't we just eat it? Hua is already impatient. Its eyes are shining with blazing fire, and its tongue licks the corners of its mouth. Because the giant chinchilla has the breath of the source of God, and its own strength seems to be relatively strong. For a beast like Hua, it is a huge tonic. Let's keep it. This creature is very interesting. I plan to take it back to study it, Jang E said, touching his chin. He is very curious about everything related to the source of God. So far, no one knows what the source of God is and how it is produced. Jang E is a person who likes to know the fact and the reason. E rants people. He still wanted to find out more about this thing. With Jang E's words, Hua had no choice but to scratch his claws and helplessly watch the fat meat slip away. After being suppressed by Jang E with drugs, the big chinchilla has completely turned into a large piece of waste. It can only lie on Lele's back, with its tongue sticking out from the corner of its mouth, looking like it is at the mercy of others. Jingwei couldn't help but walk over, stretched out her hand to touch its furry back, and a layer of blush suddenly appeared on her face. There seemed to be a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. This did not escape Jang E's eyes. He thought to himself, it seems that this woman is not as indifferent as she seems. Okay, we should leave. We just had a fight here. Although the noise was not very loud, it cannot be guaranteed that it will not be noticed. We'd better be careful and leave as soon as possible. Wait for the source of God to appear before taking action. After Jang E finished speaking, he planned to leave with a few people. But what he didn't know was that the moment he made his move, a hunter who had been searching for him felt his presence from a great distance. In the thick fog, the huge white monster, soul-deprived, slowly raised its head, and the blood-red killing intent in its eyes almost became real. The moment he felt Jang E's presence, he didn't hesitate at all, kicked the ground with both legs, and rushed forward like a cannonball. With just a simple sprint, a big hole was knocked out of all the buildings along the way, and ice, snow, and dust soared into the sky, leaving a long trail behind him. He wanted to kill chaos, because that was the meaning of his existence. In order to kill the target, he could pay any price. No, for him, there was no concept of price at all, because his life itself was meaningless. Killing was meaningful. Chapter 1037. Chase, Escape. Jang E opened the dimensional door, and after several shuttles, a warning suddenly emerged in his mind. The instinct of time echoing allowed him to realize the coming of the crisis. A strong wind suddenly came from a distance, and in an instant, a huge passage was opened in the city. All the trees and buildings along the way were very abruptly knocked away, and the bricks and tiles were broken like tofu dregs. Boom! Suddenly, a huge white shadow appeared not far away in front of Jang E. He fell from the sky, stirring up a blizzard tens of meters high. A sense of crisis enveloped Jang E, and he subconsciously turned his head to look outside the two worlds. He saw a white monster, staring at him with murderous eyes. Just such a look gave Jang E a sense of terror that he had not seen for a long time. The last time he had this feeling was when he encountered Cartiers in the East China Sea. Ypsilon. These four words first appeared in Jang E's mind. The one chasing was the failed experiment of the Columbia Navy, the soul-destroying. He just stood outside the boundary between the two worlds without stepping into it. His amazing insight was jaw-dropping. After Jingwei, Hua and Lele felt the breath of the soul sorrowing, their faces changed drastically, and Hua's hair stood up. Lele was so scared that he screamed woof. If Jang E was next to him, he might have lost control of his bowels and bladder on the spot. High-end game. Absolutely high-end game. How could a Gamma-level demon dog like him join a battle of this level? Lele looked at Jang E with horror, and the fear made him want to escape immediately. No wonder everyone had such a reaction. Ypsilon, this level of concept is too terrifying for every alien. The gap between 10,000 points and 9,999 points is like a natural chasm. It can be said that after evolving to this level, it is essentially a different kind of creature. Seeing Jang E inside the barrier, The soul-sorrowing opened his mouth, and his jaw opened to an unimaginable arc. A terrible energy condensed in his mouth. Jang E's face suddenly changed. Quickly retreat. Jingwei turned into a shadow without hesitation and followed Jang E. Hua, who was lying there resting, also transformed into a fighting form at the first time. Boom! A purple beam of light shot out from the mouth of the soul's sorrow and hit Jang E's barrier fiercely. Long lost, terrible power. Is this thing the trump card of the joint forces? Damn it, I knew they would definitely send out the Epsilon-level force. He originally thought that the other party would send out the Cartiers when they were desperate. But he didn't expect that the other party had other Epsilon-level backgrounds. It was Jang E who appeared here today. Otherwise, it would be impossible for anyone else to block the Soul's Sorrow's light attack at the level of Delta. The name of absolute defense is not entirely wrong. Jang E temporarily blocked the Soul's Sorrow's attack with a powerful devouring ability of the Dimension Gate. However, there is a gap between the Delta level and the Epsilon level. This is also one of the biggest gaps between the two levels, the level of supernatural energy. Facing the failed Epsilon experiment of Soul Sorrow, Jang E could certainly block his temporary attack. But apart from defense, he could do nothing else. The huge gap in the energy between the two sides would be difficult to make up even if he ate all the remaining energy food in his hand. In other words, as long as he continued to fight, he would definitely be exhausted and then let Soul's Sorrow crush him alive. Fortunately, in addition to his strong defense, his ability to escape was also first class. I can't beat you, but I can run away. Let's go. Jang E said nothing. After everyone around him was ready, he took a few steps back and opened the dimensional door behind him. The moment the two worlds were released, he disappeared 1,000 meters away with Hua and Lele. After losing the obstruction of the two worlds, the purple energy beam directly swallowed everything and went straight through the huge city. With just one blow, all the buildings within 7 or 8 kilometers turned into ashes. This amazing power can be felt even from a long distance. On Star Island, the aliens who sensed this power changed color. The aliens of the joint forces were still okay, as they had been reminded by General Horn early on. Therefore, as soon as they discovered that powerful force, they did not hesitate and tried their best to stay away. The soul-snatching killer doesn't care who you are. As long as you appear in his eyes, he will not let go of any living thing. The aliens of Huashu country did not know the truth of the matter. Qinglong contacted the command center immediately. An abnormal source of power was found on Star Island, located in the northeast of the outer periphery of Fog Valley. It is suspected to be Epsilon. Not only him, but other people in the two major districts. The aliens who discovered this energy fluctuation also reported it to the headquarters immediately. After receiving the report, Li Tianyang and others immediately took the news seriously. Epsilon? Could it be that Cartiers took action? How dare the Colombian Navy not follow the ethics of martial arts? Li Tianyang's face changed. If Cartiers took action, the result would only be a dead end.
No one would get any advantage at that time.
But at this moment, Xuanwu suddenly frowned. He looked into the distance and said lightly, no, it was not Cartiers who took action. In the distant direction, on the flagship of the Colombian Navy, Cartier stood on the main gun of the flagship with his hands folded on his chest, emitting his powerful pressure here. Xuanwu could clearly sense that breath. Xuanwu knew in his heart that Cartiers was telling the people of the two regions that they did not break the agreement. It was not Cartiers who took action? How is it possible? Could it be that they have other aliens from Epsilons? Li Tianyang said in disbelief. Situ Xian frowned, walked over and said, this is impossible. If they really have the fighting power of two Epsilons, there is no need to compete with us fairly. They can completely rely on force to forcibly drive away our troops. Li Tianyang frowned and said, but how to explain the powerful supernatural reaction on the island? Situ Xian had a guess in his mind. He thought that this matter might be related to Jang E. Could it be that Jang E was promoted? If so, it would be a great thing for the Jiangnan region. Situ Xian said directly, I will contact Hundun. See if he has any news. Chapter 1038 I Order. Situ Xian began to communicate with Jang E. After 5 or 6 seconds, the communication was connected. Hello, this is Chaos, over. Jang E's voice was clear and urgent. This was inconsistent with his usual calm voice. Situ Xian frowned and thought. Is it related to you? Chaos, an unknown energy source, was found on Qingdao, suspected to be Ypsilon level. Do you know anything about this? Of course. The energy source you mentioned is chasing me. When Jang E said this, he was fleeing with Hua and the others. After being targeted by the soul sorrow, they had no better choice except to escape. If it wasn't Jang E who appeared here today, any other Delta-level alien would have died. Only Jang E, who has the top defense and super unlimited displacement ability, can barely escape his pursuit. However, this does not mean that the situation can end easily. Jang E can travel through space for 1,000 meters in 1 second, and the soul sorrow can move 800 meters in 1 second simply by relying on his strong body. However, the soul-destroying can fire highly destructive energy cannons from the air, with a range of more than 10 kilometers. Jang E had to constantly change direction and move in a serpentine manner to avoid being targeted by the soul-destroying. He had already felt that the form of this thing was very unstable. It seemed to be irrational, with only the purest will to kill. Perhaps the only good news was that his power was far less than that of Cartier's and Xuanwu. So Jang E had room to deal with him. But in this way, he would not have any extra time and space to interfere with the battles of other people on the island. In addition to being unable to attack the people of the joint forces, let alone get involved in the source of God.
This was not good news for Jang E.
Because before this, he should have been the most powerful competitor for the source of God. In fact, for the commander-in-chief of the joint forces, the purpose of sending out the soul-destroying was exactly the same. Of course, it would be best to kill Jang E. But if even the soul-destroying could not kill Jang E, then the worst result would be that Jang E, the chess piece, could be completely isolated from the chessboard, which was also an outcome they could accept. When Situ Xian heard what Jang E said, he felt a chill on his back. Jang E didn't have time to argue with him and directly transmitted the video of the battle to him. When Situ Xian saw the huge white monster, he felt a creepy feeling that made his hair stand up. Is this a human experiment of the Columbia navies? After the end of the world, all countries spared no effort to develop the abilities of aliens. As for human experiments, it is a key point in the competition among all parties. Columbia has the most advanced genetic engineering system in the world, so it has also made a major breakthrough in this regard. Cartier's is their most successful product. I didn't expect that there would be such a thing as the soul loser. Situ Xian asked nervously. Chaos, how are you now? Can you withstand it? Jang E took a deep breath, turned flexibly, and dodged an energy cannon from the soul loser. After he dodged, a narrow passage of tens of meters wide and more than 10 kilometers long was left at the place where his body was just now. Hua and Lele's hair stood up, especially Lele, who was already wagging his tongue and was scared to death. Jang E replied to Situ Xian, what if you can't hold on? The other side has violated the rules and has used the power of Ypsilon. Do you have any way to deal with it? Situ Xian said helplessly. The other side did not send out Cartier's, and we will not send out Xuanwu. Now that the two Ypsilon-level forces are confronting each other, no one dares to take the first step. Therefore, we have no better way to support you. Jang E rolled his eyes. I see. Then, what's the point of you calling me? Wait a minute. Situ Xian came to Li Tianyang and transferred the battlefield picture sent by Jang E. Li Tianyang and other people from the East China Sea region came over to take a look. When they saw the appearance of the monster, they all showed a look of astonishment and horror on their faces. Isn't this a soul-slaying? He is still alive. Situ Xian had guessed that the East China Sea region, as an old rival of the Columbia Ocean Fleet, must know some details about this thing. Seeing the reactions of Li Tianyang and others, he immediately asked, what exactly is this thing? Chaos is being hunted by it now. If you know anything about it, please tell Chaos immediately. Li Tianyang looked at the ferocious monster in the picture, and the whites of his eyes became more obvious. On this day, he recalled the fear of being dominated by this monster. The East China Sea region and the Columbia Navy have both conducted experiments on alien transformation. There is no shortage of man-made aliens in the East China Sea region. However, Columbia's genetic engineering is more advanced and more crazy. They were the first to start the development of the Epsilon-class aliens. However, this overly radical style of behavior has brought a huge disaster to the East China Sea. Codename Soul Lost. The monster was once the first semi-successful test product. The reason why it is called semi-successful is that he successfully possessed the combat power of the Epsilon level. However, he is a monster who only knows how to kill and has no self-awareness most of the time. On the day he was developed, he directly destroyed half of the Columbia Navy base and slaughtered more than 10,000 people. Even the troops patrolling the East China Sea region at that time were completely destroyed by him. Later, if it were not for the successful development of the complete test product of Cartier's, coupled with the cooperation of Xuanwu, this monster would not know how many people would be slaughtered in the East China Sea before it stopped. After that battle, many people thought that the soul was dead. No one expected that he would be recovered by the crazy Columbia Navy and deployed as a secret weapon on the Star Island battlefield. They are crazies. Li Tianyang gritted his teeth and said, "If this guy appears, no one on the island will be safe." Li Tianyang did not dare to hide at this time. If the soul is allowed to make trouble, I am afraid that the elite of the entire East China Sea region will die. He quickly yelled at Hun Dun. "Hun Dun, listen. This guy is a failed experiment. He has no reason at all. If we leave him on Qingdao, everyone will be in danger of death. I order you to use your ability to escape from Qingdao immediately. Lead him to the depths of the sea." Jang E frowned slightly when he heard Li Tianyang's words. Lead him to the depths of the sea? Do you mean that he won't drown in the sea? Chapter 1039. Long time no see. Li Tianyang said to Jang E, "He is a monster developed by the Navy. Of course, he has the ability to adapt to water." Jang E's eyes flashed with a brilliant light. "Then can I think that he will be more powerful in the sea waters?" Li Tianyang's tone stagnated. I'm not sure. In that battle, almost all the people who experienced it died." When he spoke, his eyes flickered. Situ Xian keenly noticed the loophole in his words. "Minister Li, what you said is not right? It was Xuanwu and Cartier's who teamed up to defeat that guy. Xuanwu should be very familiar with his ability." Li Tianyang was suddenly a little speechless. Xuanwu, on the other hand, took off the virtual headset on his head and said to Situ Xian with a smile, "Almost. That guy should be targeting an amphibious combat unit, which has a relatively strong combat capability both on the seabed and on land." When he said this, his eyes rolled up. "But I don't know how Chaos's underwater combat capability is." Situ Xian laughed angrily when he heard this. "Li Tianyang, you are simply crazy. You actually let Chaos take the risk and hold back an out-of-control Epsilon." Li Tianyang's face was bulging with veins, and Xuanwu didn't give him any face, but he had no way. He could only roar. "Then what can I do? Now only Chaos has the ability to hold him back. If he is allowed to kill on the island, everyone will die." Jang E felt that he had almost known what he wanted to know. He directly cut off the call and stopped listening to the people on the other end. After a space shuttle and avoiding the attack of the soul-destroying, Jang E glanced at the white giant monster and showed an evil smile at the corner of his mouth. In other words, he is a monster who only knows how to kill but has little self-awareness. Right? Then don't blame me. Jang E was very clear about one thing at this time. This monster had already set his sights on him, and it could be said that he would never give up. No matter how he ran, this monster would chase him. According to Jang E's character, he should have gone to Xuanwu or the Columbia Navy to solve the problem regardless of everything. But after thinking carefully, both methods were too risky for him. Sang-hun was a madman who could not distinguish between friend and foe. If Jang E let him over and let Xuanwu solve the problem, even if Xuanwu could kill him, it would definitely consume some energy. If Cartiers took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, it would be very likely that the entire Huaxiu regional coalition would be wiped out. At that time, Jang E would lose more than he gained. As for leading him to the Columbia Navy, it was even more suicidal. Not to mention that Cartiers would attack him immediately. He didn't even know whether the Columbia Navy had a way to control this thing. Jang, you would not take such a risk. He was always steady and would not take risks. Since we can't afford to provoke the powerful, then we should just bully the small ones. Therefore, Jang E made a decisive decision that no one could have thought of. He raised his hand, and 12-dimensional doors appeared within a radius of 1 kilometer. 12 mirror worlds. After the 12 doors were opened, Jang E said to Jingwei, Huahua, and Lele, choose a door and escape by yourself. Find a place to hide, and don't let anyone find you. On the island today, almost all the aliens have been killed. There will be no danger outside. On the contrary, if Lele follows him, he will probably be killed by the aftermath with his strength. Its mission for this trip has ended, and there is no need to continue to follow Jang E. As for Huahua, it is difficult to play a big role when facing an opponent of the level of Soul Lost. It may be inconvenient for Jang E to move. At this time, Jingwei said, you can let them enter my shadow. In this way, as long as you are alive, we will be in no danger. Jingwei's ability depends on her shadow. As long as the chosen carrier does not have any problems, her shadow space will not collapse. This ability belongs to the lower-level ability of Jang E's space, but it also has its convenience. Its time flow rate is the same as that of the outside world, and it can allow creatures to survive in it. However, at this dangerous moment, Jingwei did not abandon Jang E and escape alone, which made Jang E's impression of her become much better. Jang E thought about it and said, well, you just follow me. Huahua and Lele entered the shadow space, and then Jingwei attached to Jang E and followed him around. Jang E did not escape from Qingdao as others thought, but suddenly changed direction and headed towards Wugu. Don't you know the difference between friend and foe? Well, I will drag everyone on Qingdao and die together. As he thought, the soul of death did not hesitate to directly lock the direction of his escape and chased him. In the eyes of the soul of death, the will to kill is rising. In addition to killing Jang E, he now has no extra thoughts. Sometimes, this crazy guy is the most terrible because he will not be bound by any constraints and can sacrifice everything, including his own life, in order to kill the target. And for the Columbia Navy, his life is not important. As a residual, a defective product, he was already in tatters. The moment he was unsealed, his life would not exceed 24 hours. He was doomed. Arana City. The Dragon King and the deputy captain, Bai Lian, hid in a deep cave. While the two eliminated the toxins left by Hellsister in their bodies, they waited for the opening of the Fog Valley battlefield. The two made a decision that they would never take action again unless the final battle began. This battle was related to whether the Dragon King pirates could rise again. Therefore, they could not afford to make any more mistakes. The source of God. I must get it. The Dragon King clenched his casserole-sized fist and said so. Bai Lian sat on a stone with a pile of compressed biscuits in front of him. As for drinking water, it was formed by melting ice cubes that Bai Lian condensed the moisture in the air with his ability. Looking at the Dragon King, who was still fighting spirit in front of him, Bai Lian's eyes were full of relief. Lord Dragon King, you will surely become the king of the 7 seas. The source of God is just your starting point. One day, you will have the power that all major countries have to pay attention to. Tianlong King bit off several layers of compressed biscuits and chewed them in big mouthfuls. Now, we just need to wait patiently. As long as there are no accidents in the middle, I have a chance. Before his voice fell, the bunker where he was directly defeated by a huge force. Tianlong King is worthy of being a veteran of the battlefield. He immediately transformed into a diamond armor dragon and soared into the sky with a white lotus. Who dares to sneak attack me? Tianlong King roared angrily to the sky. His eyes swept around the field and finally caught a glimpse of two rapidly flashing black spots a few kilometers away. It was this glance that made Jang E, who was traveling through space, notice it. Jang E did not expect that he would accidentally dig a loach out of the ground while rushing left and right with the soul of death. Just a moment of daze, a sly smile appeared at the corner of Jang E's mouth. Dragon King, it's been a long time since we've met. Now that you're here, don't leave. I'll give you a great gift. He braked suddenly in midair, then turned around and headed straight for the Dragon King. The Dragon King also recognized Jang E at this time. However, soon, there was someone who gave him a headache even more than Jang E, so he had to pay attention. Ypsilon. Chapter 1040. Difficult? Then don't do it. The murderous aura of Sang-hun and the terrifying pressure that made people shudder instantly chilled the originally hot hearts of Tianlong Wang and Bai Lian. Don't come over here. The two stared at Jang E, who was running towards them, and roared in fear. No matter how stupid they were, they knew that Jang E was trying to divert the trouble. But how could Jang E let them go? Tianlong Wang only sent out his clones during the trip to the East China Sea, so Jang E and Linghu Feishue had no chance to kill him. But seeing him in this place, Jang E certainly wouldn't be polite to him. With a smirk on his face, he shuttled through space a few times and flashed to the vicinity of Tianlong Wang with Huahua. There was only Jang E in Sang-hun's eyes. So he chased after him with a roar, without saying a word. Tianlong Wang was so angry that he wanted to fight Jang E to death, but the most dangerous thing at this time was the thing behind him. In Sang-hun's eyes, there were suddenly two more people around the target.
Kill.
There was only this thought in his mind. The spherical head like a boiled egg opened its ferocious mouth, and an energy cannon quickly condensed into shape. A plant! Tianlong Wang cursed, and then dragged Bai Lian to part ways with Jang E. But why did Jang E come? He just wanted to drag Tianlong Wang into the water. As the saying goes, whoever sees it gets a share. Of course, he is to share this kind of trouble with his good brother. Wherever Tianlong Wang went, he followed him directly. No matter how fast Tianlong Wang was, he could not be faster than Jang E, who had the ability to shuttle through space. Jang E passed by Tianlong Wang and gave him a sinister smile. The next moment, the energy cannon of the soul-destroying flooded the space behind them, carrying the momentum of splitting mountains and blasting over. Originally, with Jang E's speed, it was not certain that he could avoid the attack of the soul-destroying. Fortunately, the ability of Time Echo would make him alert in advance when facing a crisis and instinctively make an evasive reaction. This has become a passive ability, and the body will use its ability to dodge before the brain. However, Tianlong Wang did not have this ability. His body was directly hit by the blow of the soul-destroying. Then, the huge body of the Dragon King, whose scales were comparable to the top-level alloy gear, shattered like crackers. And his deputy leader Bai Lian was blown into ashes without any suspense. The power of the Ypsilon level is absolutely overwhelming for the lower-level aliens. Except for Jang E, who is extremely rare, focuses on defense and has the top spatial ability, it is possible to stalemate with him for a while. A second later, the soul-destroying passed by the Dragon King and slapped him impatiently. The Dragon King felt that his body was about to be tortured, and every inch of muscle and blood vessels burst. Boom! He was smashed directly into the ground. And the terrifying thing is that where he fell, the ground actually sank a lot, revealing a bottomless and extremely terrifying abyss. This scene was extremely weird, but Jang E was no longer in the mood to care about the life and death of the Dragon King. It was a meaningful thing for Jang E to let him delay the soul for even a second. He originally planned to drag down all the aliens in the entire Qingdao. Well, except for those guys in the Jiangnan district. They are really too weak. Two major district command centers. Zhu Ke had just returned with Linghu Feishue not long ago. As soon as she came back, she was immediately welcomed into the medical room and received treatment from the most professional medical team. Li Tianyang went over and comforted her. This time you lost to Billy Boy, just because you awaken later and your ability index is not as high as his. Don't be discouraged, Sooner or later, you will surpass him and become Ypsilon. Besides, didn't you also kill a member of the help chain? Zhuke heard Li Tianyang's comfort, and her heart was calm. Billy Boy completely shattered the arrogance in her heart. She will never forget the feeling of losing her teammates and brushing shoulders with the god of death. It will also inspire her to become stronger. We still have Chaos and Azure Dragon on the island. But the only decent fighter on the other side is Billy the Kid. I've seen Billy the Kid's abilities. Azure Dragon has no advantage over him, but Chaos abilities can restrain him. Let him fight for the source of God. Suzaku gave his advice seriously. She believed that even if the operation did not go according to the original plan and the source of God fell into the hands of the Jiangnan region, it would be better than being obtained by the Colombian Navy. Li Tianyang fell into a brief silence after hearing this. After a while, he just said, "Chaos, I'm afraid he won't survive." Suzaku heard this and asked in astonishment, why? Could it be that he can't beat Billy the Kid? Li Tianyang shook his head. No, it's not because of this. It's because the enemy has sent out the Soul Slayer. Even Suzaku, after hearing this name, her body could not help but stiffen for a moment. She had seen how much damage Soul Lost had done to the two armies. In the end, if the two armies had not reached a temporary settlement, and Xuanwu and Cartier's had not joined forces to defeat it, the consequences would be unimaginable. If that were the case, everything would be terrible. Suzaku closed his eyes helplessly. If Chaos really dies, our advantage in this operation will be completely ruined. Li Tianyang's mouth showed a strange smile. No. He put his hands behind his back and said grimly, all is fair in war. They have made sufficient preparations, don't we? He. We must get the source of God. Suzaku, he put his hand on Suzaku's shoulder. You will become the second Ypsilon in the East China Sea region. There will be no accidents in this matter. Suzaku didn't understand what Li Tianyang meant by this sentence. As combat members, they did not participate in some key decisions and intelligence. The most important quality of an excellent warrior is to obey orders and not have his own ideas. She nodded and said nothing more. She just had to trust the organization. However, at this moment, an officer suddenly ran over and hurried to Li Tianyang to report the situation. Minister, something bad has happened. Chaos. Chaos is crazy. Li Tianyang's eyes glared fiercely. Whenever something happened that was related to Jang E, it was definitely not a good thing. What did he do again? The officer said tremblingly. He did not follow the instructions and take the Soul Sorrow to run overseas, but turned around and ran to the Fog Valley. Jang E took the Soul Sorrow and rushed all over the Star Island. His goal was very clear. He rushed directly to the Fog Valley. Since you all want me to be the scapegoat, then well, let's not play with anyone. This video ends here. Dear viewers, thanks for staying tuned. Your help and support is really appreciated. More to follow soon. Please subscribe if not already, it helps me a lot.